Hey, Husker fans. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, and we're back here for another episode of our podcast on this Monday. And we've got a lot to talk about. The transfer portal's opening here in a couple of days. The Huskers, Nebraska basketball, hosted another transfer portal target this weekend. We've got some recruiting buzz, some spring football buzz we're going to cover. So before we get into all that, please make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section, and let us know what you think about our conversations this week. And Danny, how are you doing on this Monday morning?
I'm doing well. It's the midway point through April, and there's still a ton to write about. So I'm always happy.
Spring football, is eternal. Spring's eternal, I guess, for Nebraska. And like I said in this, kind of when there wasn't a spring game and people were kind of down, I felt like about the spring. I was like, just be thankful that Nebraska hosts open practices and that they they tried out Matt Rule. It seems like multiple times per week. A lot of players, a lot more media access, I think, than others. Yep. So at least we still learn quite a few things. We still get quite a few nuggets of information. And although we maybe haven't gleaned quite as much from this last press conference, I still think there was some worthwhile information. But what were your takeaways from maybe Saturday's press conference or just the past week of spring ball?
I thought it was interesting, and we can go into the subcategory if you want, when Matt Rule gave advice about players entering the transfer portal, because there was a certain linebacker that left that is entering the transfer portal again. And so I want to be polite here, but I think that Matt Rule was referring to him because it seemed like a very pointed criticism of the linebacker. And so that was one of my big takeaways. I know he didn't offer as much information as he does in some press conferences, but it was a good reminder that and even with Nico Amavea stuff over at Tennessee, that the transfer portal is kind of, it's not ruining college football, but it's such a polarizing thing.
It's gotten pretty crazy, and I want to get to that in just a second. In terms of like the stuff on the field, Matt kind of spent a lot of time talking about the transfer portal. So I mean, his press conference I think was like 20 minutes, and he probably spent at least a third of that probably talking about the transfer portal. And he didn't really say Nebraska was going to be too active, but he did say that they would look, and if there was guys they thought that could help them out, they mentioned one or two. I did think just the continued talk about Quentin Ives being the number 2 running back was interesting. He talked about how he liked the offense and defensive lines, especially the physicality. He said he feels like Nebraska is a really physical team, blocking and tackling, which, I mean, I think that's a good thing. That's what you want to, that's where you want to be at this point. I mean, you want your head coach to be satisfied with that. And Matt Rule has a high standard for that. I mean, he's not a soft coach. I mean, the Huskers they practice hard, they hit hard. And I mean, you could see it from when he took over as the head coach. The physicality, rose to another level. So the fact that Matt Rule's pleased with that, I think, is a positive sign. The playmakers and at wide receiver. Another thing he said that just caught my ear. Excuse me. They didn't go into it a lot of times, but he said, I feel like we're covering people better. I feel like we don't have a lot of open wide receivers, and I know that the receivers have got a lot of attention this spring, but in one-on-one drills, it's easy to win as a receiver, but when you're in team stuff, makes it easier for those cornerbacks. And I feel like I agree with Matt that I feel like the cornerbacks are going to be better. So to hear him say that, was something that piqued my interest a little bit.
Yeah, Andrew Marshall is a guy that I'm excited to see both in coverage and kickoff return. But I think they really upgraded the cornerback room this offseason, and I also think, and you've mentioned this before, we got to see a little bit of the future as well in a guy like Donovan Jones, and the depth that the cornerback room has. Larry Tarver. I know I'm forgetting a bunch of names, but the other kid from Florida too.
Sanders, Amari Sanders.
Yep, Amari Sanders. There we go. And so I think we're going to see a much better corner room, a much more physical corner room. And in year 2, under the tutelage of John Butler, I think the defensive back room is going to be miles and miles ahead of where it was. It's not going to be in one injury and the room completely implodes like it did with Tommy Hill's unfortunate injury, it's going to be a lot of depth, a lot of physicality, and a much more well-rounded room.
Yeah, and I think just, good athletes and length. There's length in that room now, and guys who can play more man-to-man coverage. And you look back at, a few years ago, when Chenander was running the defense, like it was, the guys were playing like 9-10 yards off, and I don't know if that was his philosophy or it was
He
because
was
I
running the
think
defense.
yeah.
Hell, and then I was running the defense.
I mean, but I just remember, and maybe it was because they couldn't cover, and so I think that Nebraska has recruited a certain type of athlete at that position, and I think we're finally starting to, see the fruits of that labor, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and Eric Shenander defense was nothing to write home about, and I remember guys like JoJo and JoJo Noman and Ben Steele making that defense look good. I mean, and even then it was a struggle. So we're miles ahead in terms of scheme and depth, in my opinion.
Yeah, and so before we switch, I guess, to the next topic, on the offensive line, just Tyler Knack is another guy that's kind of been building a little bit more buzz at offensive tackle. I don't know if he transferred in. I can't remember where he transferred from for some reason. Anyway, he's another guy that's in the mix at offensive tackle. That's maybe taking advantage of Gunnar Gatula, not being there. So that could be another guy in the mix with Liptowski and some of those other guys in the offensive tackle position. But I feel like there's a lot of confidence about the offensive line. I feel like the coaching staff feels good about that. So, as far as what does that really mean? It's hard to say, but I feel pretty optimistic about this offensive line. And
Knack transferred over
frankly,
from Utah, by the
yeah,
way.
And I remembered it was a Power 4 school, but just looking at this group, man, I mean, if you have even your preferred starters, you have 5 guys who started double-digit games last year, either for Nebraska, Notre Dame, or Alabama. So I feel like that's a pretty good starting point for this offensive line.
Yeah, I'd say it's really good. And they went out and addressed their needs quickly in the portal. And they knew that offensive line depth was going to be a problem, so they went out and got some guys who were on teams that played in the college football playoff or played in big moments. So the experience that the transfers bring to the table is also something noteworthy.
All right, let's talk a little transfer portal now, because it's been the main topic of conversation in college football here the past few days with Nico. Is it Iamavela? Is that how you pronounce the
I
last name?
believe so, yes.
Yeah. So, anyways, we'll call him Nico from here on out, because I suck at last names. I'm sorry. It's not good at it, people.
We're
I'm
writers,
trying.
people. We're not video people, clearly, as you can tell.
Trying to get better, though. I'm trying.
Yeah.
I really am trying. I know I've misspelled or mispronounced so many names. Anyway, but yeah, this whole thing is crazy, and I guess Nico asked for more money in the winter and then didn't get it, didn't enter the portal, and yeah, to do this holdout thing is nuts. And I know that there's this whole house settlement, and once that goes into effect, there's like a cutoff date, and after that, any NIL deal over like $600 has to go to like a third party company or organization to get approved, which I'm sure they'll still figure it out, but there's not going to be like the clearinghouse it is now. Right now I think guys are just getting money. Just I don't think there's really a lot of stipulations with it. I'm not. So guys are going to try to cash in, and that's why people are predicting like this spring portal might be kind of crazy. And I think it got pretty crazy with Nico entering, and now it's like Tennessee's trying to get some quarterbacks into the portal. So yeah, hold on to your buckle your seatbelts for the next few days. I think Nebraska's going to be fine, though. I'm honestly not worried about Nebraska losing like any key starters to the portal.
No.
I think they will lose players because of the uncertainty with the roster limits.
I mean, if you ask James Williams, he was a key starter, so we lost him to the portal.
Yeah, James Williams is, and then Terrence Knighton's coming out and defending James Williams, being like, he can say whatever he wants. It's like, well, maybe he should shut up, because
he can. Just be prepared for the blowback.
Well, it's like, I mean, he wasn't that good. Like, he had some moments, but it's not like
he only came in on third down as a pass rusher.
Yeah, and he had like one good game. I mean, he had like one good game where he had multiple sacks that I can remember, and besides that, I don't remember him making like that big of an impact. So, it's just like, what are you doing? And then, to him just repeatedly being like, well, no disrespect, dude. Like you're disrespecting Ty Robinson. Ty Robinson is not a small human being, and for you to, sit there and like, just minimize his compared to some Florida State defensive tackle, like just shut up. You're making yourself, yeah. You're making, oh yeah, but you had 2 sacks against Rutgers and Purdue. Like, good for you. You didn't even make a tackle. Let's see. So like half of the games last season, you didn't even measure a statistic. So in 5 games, you did not even measure a single statistic. So maybe you should worry about that instead of taking shots at your old teammates, because it doesn't look good for you. I mean, for one thing.
Honestly, nobody would know who you were if Nebraska didn't give you a chance.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, maybe he's bitter at the way that Matt Rule and Tony White ended things. Maybe he's just bitter at the way the Knighton and White left. But even still, like nobody would know who you were if it wasn't for Nebraska. So
yeah, it's just he's it's interesting. So but hey, man, I'm glad that guy's not honestly, I'm glad that guy's on our team anymore.
Yeah,
that's not somebody you want on your team. Like I can see from every interview that he's given, like that's just not somebody that's for the team. He's for himself. And
even
those aren't the kind of
Bayer. I wouldn't want him back. I mean, we're good now.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, he started 11 games for Nebraska last year, entered the portal, and yeah, I definitely think that's who Matt Rule was talking about when
100%,
he said, he said I think his exact quote was, just don't leave. He said, I want everybody to be happy here, and if they're not happy here, I want them to leave. I want them to have an opportunity. But he said, don't leave because somebody promises you a few more bucks or a few more something else, because a lot of our guys who do leave find out that that's not always true. And Mekhi Gabor found that out because he's now in the transfer portal and he's visiting North Carolina. So, I mean, like, he'll find a place to play, but
playing for Bill Belichick isn't bad, to be fair. I mean,
yeah, if then that works out, I mean, he's not a bad player, but yeah, I thought it was interesting. He also said something like, don't call me if what your promise doesn't come true. If your promise is starting job, like, don't call me. But and so, I don't know if that's happened. I doubt that has happened, but I think that's kind of his, shot across the bow. Like I told you, like I made you aware. And I think the thing with Matt Rule is he's very transparent. He's always been very transparent with these players. I think he does the right thing. I really do. I really believe he does the right thing by these players in a tough situation. I think that's why these guys are sticking it out. And I think, there's going to be this uncertainty where they might not know if they can stick on the roster. And I do think that some of them are going to stick it out, like Matt Rule said, where they're like, I'm a Husker through and through, and I commend those guys. And hell, I mean, maybe that might be Turner Corcoran and Teddy Prochazka, because I mean, I know if Turner Corcoran entered the portal, he would get picked up somewhere, because teams need offensive linemen so freaking bad. Like they would at least give him a chance. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we'll see what happens. There'll be some departures there, but I'm not worried about any starting level players leave. Hopefully I'm right about that. What do you think about are you concerned about anybody leaving, and do you think Nebraska is going to be targeting anybody?
No, on both fronts. I think, if players were to leave, they would have left, at the very beginning of the transfer portal last year. And I mean, Nebraska may look at 1 or 2 guys, like maybe like you were saying, last time, an extra running back or something like that. But I truly do think that the roster is pretty much set for the 2025 season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't really see any glaring needs. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe if you could get an all-conference right tackle, I guess, you wouldn't necessarily
you wouldn't
say no.
Yeah.
The problem is that, that player's going to I feel like this is going to be like, in those movies where, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, people's like worst reference ever, but it's like there's like the Last Christmas toy, and everybody's like fighting for it and going crazy. Like that's what the spring. Yeah. That's what this is going to be like for people trying to get offensive tackles. It's going to be like people pushing each other, and so I just feel like the bidding wars are going to get nuts, and I'm not sure if Nebraska's really going to take part in that, because I really don't think that's that much that needed. I feel like they're pretty solid almost across the board, really. I truly feel that way. I'm not saying that they're perfect, but they have, a starting caliber player, I would say, at almost every position.
I had to think of Arnold Schwarzenegger Christmas movies, and that was the only one that came to mind. So I'm glad I hit on that. I usually think of him
I'm impressed
Terminator.
that you that you got that reference. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else will. So that was impressive, Danny.
Well, this is why we do a podcast together, because nobody else gets us and understands us, and yeah. So, no, I don't think that Nebraska will make any other moves. If they do, it will be a small one. And on that same token, I don't think players will leave. I think the roster is pretty much set at this point, and we're approaching halfway through April, almost May. 3 more months until the season. Like I think what we see is what we're gonna get.
Yeah, I agree. So let's move on to some potentially future Huskers with some recruiting roundup. Still, like visitors trickling in. It's been different this spring, and I think it's, they're not having the spring game, so they haven't made that like as big of a weekend. And but I do think that it's maybe been a little bit of a better process because you get a few guys every weekend who can kind of get the VIP treatment.
Yeah.
So yeah, here's kind of a rundown of who visited this weekend. Syracuse edge commit Cameron Wilson, who's a 3-star. He's ranked as a 4-star by some, but a 3-star in the composite rankings. He visited this weekend. I think he also
loves. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think he also talked about coming back. That's the only other thing I was going to say.
Yeah, because he loves the Florida movement. I was reading an article yesterday. He loves that, the Florida connections, and heck, there's a lot of Florida players up here now, so it's not just a trend. They're like between the players and Phil Simpson, and I know I'm missing a bunch of guys. Even Jamar Mosey, I think, recruits from Florida some, but the Florida movement is here, and I think it's here to stay.
Well, yeah, I mean they've got connections there, and it is a smart place to recruit. Like there's a reason why it's smart to recruit like Texas and Florida and California, because there's so many good players. Like you're bound to find some good ones. So that was a good player to have on campus. Cameron Wagner, the offensive tackle, was back again. So that was a good visit. Jace Reynolds, linebacker, edge target, was back on campus this weekend. Let's see who. Oh yeah, Dayton Raiola. Yeah, Luke Sorensen visited this week.
Who I'm watching, honestly, because I think we're gonna need a tight end soon, just for developmental purposes. And Sorensen's a baller.
He is, yeah. He's been kind of a fast rising recruit, and I'm not sure what to make of the Isaac Jensen thing with him canceling the visit to Nebraska.
Yeah,
because I'm not. That makes me think Nebraska's not really in anymore, or maybe he just maybe he's been in Nebraska so many times he feels like he doesn't need to visit, but it's probably not a great sign either way. So I really feel like he's probably not going to be part of the class now. So,
well, I feel like the pursuit of Luke Sorensen and Isaac Jensen not coming may be connected in a way, just because I think the coaching staff maybe knows that Jensen is not a guarantee, and I think Jensen probably knows that maybe Nebraska is trying to move on to other options. Because the one thing that this staff does is that they recruit very quickly if they recognize a player not wanting to be here or wanting to come here. They don't wait for the player's decision. They just keep going.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I think they do a good job of communicating with the players. And so if they know there's not a clear interest here, it's like, okay, well, good luck to your future. And, we'll move on to somebody else. So Dayton Raiola also visited again. I think he was on campus with maybe one of the receivers. I can't remember exactly, but 4-star Nayland Scott also visited this weekend.
I like him a lot.
I think Ryan Mosley was there. I believe
Ryan Mosley and Nayland Scott, and I love both. Yeah. Sign me up for either one, please.
Yes. So Nebraska's doing a good job with a lot of these guys. I think they're doing what you need to do. These out of region recruits, especially, you want to try to get them on campus 3 times. I mean, that's like the magic number. You had your junior day, you get your spring visit, official visit, and then close it out. So that's kind of where they're at. I think they're following along the plan. I mean, they've only got 3 commitments right now, but I think they're only going to take like 15. So I wouldn't worry too much. They've got most of their top targets are coming in for official visits, and that's when they're gonna look to close. So I feel like 2026 class is setting up well. I don't know. It feels like there's been some positive buzz about Trey Taylor, but it's really hard to read. What's your read on Trey Taylor this week? Because it seems like it's almost different every week.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
He's really hard to read. He's been a fan of Nebraska. He likes the business school. He likes that, but at this point, with his decision coming up May 1st, I had said last week that was a good thing for Nebraska, but now I'm not so sure. We'll see what happens this week. I think, honestly, I'm going to be watching this week for if there's any buzz about Keegan Croucher, because I feel like if we hear a lot about Keegan Croucher, then that will give us the context clues that, maybe the staff knows that Taylor isn't coming. We go back to, the staff recognizing, who wants to come and who doesn't and move on. So I don't know. What's your read? I know Michigan is interested. Illinois is making a really, really big push. What's your read on it?
Well, Michigan has been projected to get a 2026 quarterback. His name's Nathan Bernard from Ohio, which is connected to this in a roundabout sort of way, but I'll explain it. So he's like a 3-star. Ohio State's evaluating him. But if Michigan gets his commitment, I think that'll be a sign of where they stand with a 2026 recruit whose name is Ryder Lyons, and he's a 5-star. He's a 2026 kid, but he's a Mormon.
Yeah.
Yes, but he's a Mormon. Okay, and so he's going to be taking a 1-year Mormon mission after this year. So even though he's a 2026 quarterback, he's really a 2027 quarterback. And he visited Michigan this weekend. So I think, like, in their ideal world, they would take I would take 2 quarterbacks, Nathan Bernard and Ryder Lyons, I think in 2026, with an eye that he would be like a 2027 QB. So, I mean, if they're taking him, I really don't see them taking Trey Taylor. So it could flip around, but my read is that Trey Taylor's not going to Michigan, at least right now. So, I mean, he seemed like he really liked his Texas A&M visit, but it's hard to say that was the one that kind of pushed him towards the decision, because he also just visited Michigan and Nebraska. So I truly don't know, but I've seen some Nebraska accounts that like are posting positive things, but you can never really tell on social media. So I'm not. I guess it's interesting because there haven't been any crystal balls or anything with Trey Taylor.
No.
It's been like all quiet. So we'll see.
Either way, his decision is coming up. So
yeah, I don't think. I don't know. I can't really rule out Illinois either. It doesn't seem like LSU is really that much in the mix. So it does seem kind of like it's Michigan, Nebraska, A&M and Illinois. See, what it feels like. Just to me, I'm not saying that's I have any intel on that. But yeah, so I think it'll be interesting to see like where things are at with Michigan and Ryder Lyons after this weekend, because if he's like their top target and they can get both of those guys, kind of like what I was saying, I think that would make sense and probably would push them out of the running for Trey Taylor. But then they're also on Keegan Croucher too. So it's either way, I feel like Keegan Croucher is going to be a fallback for, probably whoever loses this race. So like even Texas
A&M. Not a bad fallback.
No, and it's interesting how some kids have different timelines for their recruitments. Like Keegan Croucher is like, oh, I'm going to take visits in the fall before I make my decision, whereas Trey Taylor is making his decision May 1st, which is more of a, most of the time quarterbacks make their decisions before their senior season starts. Or even before like their junior season. I mean, so that's just where it is.
I know they want a quarterback in the 2027 cycle, but you have Dylan for what, 2 more seasons?
Yeah, probably
then,
2.
Then
maybe
hopefully 3. TJ can slide in for a little bit, and then you have Dayton. So I think if we didn't land a quarterback in the 2027 cycle, it wouldn't be the end of the world necessarily. Like if Dayton wasn't in the picture, if TJ wasn't here, then I'd be like, oh, like damn, we got to get rolling. But I feel like the program did a much better job of scouting quarterbacks over the last couple classes, and now they have some on the roster, so they have kind of a little bit more time. They bought themselves time and not necessarily rush for a quarterback. Don't get me wrong, I want a 2027 quarterback, but I feel like if we missed out on Trey, for example, it wouldn't be the end of the world as in some years where it's like, oh no, we need a quarterback now. Because we've been there.
And when Matt Rule came here, I mean, there wasn't, the quarterback room wasn't great. I mean, there wasn't a lot of infrastructure there. And so now you've got Dylan, who's your guy for the next 2 years. You've got two players who they at least believe could potentially be the future starter in Marcos Tabalia and
I always forget about him.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is everyone was like bummed that Daniel Kalen left. Well, Duvali is ranked like a lot higher, and I'm not saying that rankings are the end all be all, but like he's a talented kid. So I thought Nebraska, swapped out one young quarterback for another pretty effectively, and then, but the thing is, going back to the Nico kid from Tennessee is like you can be stocked, and then 2 days later your quarterback room is thin. So I think that's why you want to try to add one every year if you can, and
Yeah.
if Nebraska misses on Trey Taylor, I think Keegan Croucher is one option, and then the other kid, is it Braylon Warren?
Yep.
I think that would be a good fallback option. The kid from Omaha West Side, his dad played at Nebraska. He's not ranked yet, but he's starting to get more offers. So that would be a potential guy that they could fall back on.
And
I don't
if
want to
they
say it
don't
like
recruit
that, but
Nebraska kids, the world ends. So we don't want the world to end.
yeah, people will
Uh,
act like that. But you look at, I mean, so far he's been offered by Oklahoma State, Missouri, Kansas State, Kansas, Iowa State, Cincinnati, Arkansas. So I mean, he's becoming a legit
yeah.
prospect,
Yeah.
and so I think that's my quarterback hierarchy. And yeah, people are, there's the debate, the 2026 class, should they, get Jeff Tamalia, blah blah blah. And I mean, I don't know. I'm right there. I don't like Iowa offering him. I mean, I don't want to see him go to Iowa, but I mean, what do you do? I think they're all on the Dayton Raiola train for good reasons. So I trust their scouting, but I'm hoping that somebody else like gets Jeff Tamalia besides Iowa.
Yeah. Although Iowa's never really been a quarterback building school, so if Iowa gets
Yeah,
him, he'll probably
so why would you go
hopefully
there?
hopefully he can hand the ball off good. Hopefully he practices handoffs if he goes to Iowa. So I'm not too worried about that, but it would sting from the point of him going to a rival.
It's just going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because it's pretty clear, it's never really been that like presented as Nebraska chose, Raiola over it, but it's pretty clear that's what they did. And he just, they've never basically given the time of day to Jeff Tamala. So it's interesting, but they're betting on Raiola, and that's not a bad bet to make. I mean, he's got, two uncles that played professionally, an older brother that, is going to be most likely a first round pick. So that's the thing, is like people act like Dylan Raiola played bad last year. And they're like I even saw people,
Yeah.
because I posted some things on like the
Yeah.
Husker Big Red Facebook, like after he, being like, oh man, I'm so glad like this is our quarterback, and we don't have to deal with this Nico stuff, because Dylan Raiola definitely could do the same thing. He could absolutely do I think Dylan Raiola could fetch almost as much money as Nico could. I mean, he threw for 2,800 yards last year, completed 67% of his passes. I know he only threw 13 touchdowns, but he did not have like a dynamic receiving core. I mean,
Or a
so
good offensive coordinator
for much of the year, and he still threw for 216 yards a game. Like as a true freshman, that's hard to do. And I think that people who were criticizing Dylan Raiola for the way he played last year, like you're outing yourself as somebody that just doesn't know football. Because coming into the Big Ten conference and having that kind of success as a true freshman is not easy. So I feel like the way that he played last year is just going to be a springboard. And like you're crazy if you don't think that Dylan Raiola could go get like 3, 4, 5 million on the open market. He could. He's choosing to stay at Nebraska, and let's give him some credit for that.
Yeah, and I wonder, at what point they're gonna run everybody out of town, and then nobody will want to come here. I wonder if that day will ever come. Because
yeah, we'll see. Hopefully us us non-crazy people will keep them here.
I think I think we will, because I really do believe in what this coaching staff is doing and what this coaching staff is building. And you look at the caliber of visitors, even just this weekend, for example, that are coming to Nebraska. It's a lot different than what it was. Let's see, when did we start the show? 3 years ago. So
yeah,
I mean,
so,
3 years ago we were talking about the cupboard being bare, and we were just hoping for a bowl game and a winning season, and now the program has been elevated to a different level.
All right, let's switch over to wrap up the show here. Another transfer portal target for Nebraska. They had their rosters almost set. They have one spot at least that we know of right now, and they're trying to get it filled with another player. And over the weekend, they hosted Ezra Auser. Hopefully, that's pronunciation is correct. He is going to be a senior this next season, so he's got 1 year of eligibility. but he started 29 games last year for Utah. He started 73 games in his career. He played at East Carolina before Utah, but averaged 12 and a half points last season, 5 rebounds, shot 54% on twos, 51% from the field overall. He didn't make a single three last year. I guess he made one. He made one 3-pointer last season. Made 6 the year before, so he's not a 3-point shooter. 23% career. But I mean, he's a 61% shooter from the line. And another area that stands out to me about his game is he averaged 6.4 free throw attempts per game, which would have led Nebraska last season. So I think this would be a great addition, and I'm kind of bummed that it's Monday and we still haven't got a commitment. So
sounds a lot to me like a Juwan Gary type of replacement, like that type of player. So, and you mentioned he doesn't really shoot 3-pointers. He shot 1 last year. Now we have 3-point shooting, so we don't need to worry about a 3-point shooter. We can focus on a guy that generates contacts, drives inside, and his rebounding ability is also a plus. So I think he would be a great fit. I mean, when you look at this team, you have the 3-point shooting in Sanford and Asijan, and then you have the dynamic scoring, guard in Blue, and then you have the kid from Air Force who can also shoot a little bit, but is a taller type of player. So you have a very balanced roster from this transfer portal, and honestly, I think it's one of the best recruiting jobs that Fred's ever done.
Yeah, and this would be, I think this would be another great addition. I think he might even start if he comes on, because you look at right now they've got, you look at their front court, they've got Ugi, Eurosefagis, they've got Berke, Boyakatunsil, and Rink Mass. And I like that trio. I thought I did pretty well on those pronunciations, but
we're gonna have a mouthful of names this season, that's for sure.
Yeah. Why can't you just recruit guys like Joe Smith or something? Fred?
I was just thinking Joe Smith, Joe Smith, or like Matt Brown or something.
And I think it's going to get worse, because I meant to say this, but it does seem, and I think it's smart, but we talked about like high school recruiting not working out as well. So I think Nebraska is going to do more international recruiting, like,
which I like.
Yeah, but that's just going to be more names that are hard to pronounce. Anyway,
Fred can't get his butt over to the high schools, but he can fly overseas to do international recruiting. I don't know. No, probably Zoom calls and stuff like that, but
yeah, it's funny. Well, you got to recruit who you can get, I guess. But with Ezra, I really think so. Going back to what I was saying before is, okay, we've got 3 good bigs, but you are who you can guard, right? Like in this era of basketball, like, and I'm looking at this team, it's like, who's going to guard the 4s? Who's going to guard the other team's 4? Rink Mast? I mean, Berke can. Like, I think Berke can. Rink Mast can in some instances, but if you're talking about like a Julian Battle, who we were talking about, who those stretch 4s, who can shoot 3s, like that's going to be a tough matchup for like a Berke, or especially if you only got one guy. So I think in that sense, they could really use Ezra Osser, who he's averaged a steal per game. He's not like a shot blocker, but like half a block per game, but he's a pretty good defender. And the other thing is he's a really good post scorer. So he would give Nebraska another post threat, and I think he would play really well. He would fit really well with Rink Mast, because you talk about like the high lows situation that Mast could have.
Yeah.
Like throwing the ball down to him. He's also a really good screen and roll player, because he gets a lot of his points come off post ups, a lot of his points come in transition and isolations, but a lot of his points too come off like cuts and rolls to the basket. So talking about playing him with Jamarcus Lawrence, with Kendall Blue, I think he would be a nice fit there. Hell, you could maybe even have copy kind of what Michigan did this year and put Rink Mast as your ball handler in the pick and roll. Like, I'm serious. I think Rink Mast could do that.
Him handling the ball.
Yeah. So put Rink as your ball handler, and send Ezra up there as your screener, and that could be kind of interesting, because Rink can dribble down there and kind of isolate and post up and score. So I think there's a lot of things that they could do together, and I think he would be a great fit along with Rink Mast. And and he's a guy that, even though he started last year for Utah, he only played 23 minutes a game. So he's not. So whether he like, to me, it's basically irrelevant whether he starts or not. Like he's like Connor Siege. I don't think it's like to me, it's irrelevant whether a season starts or not, because his role is going to be the same either way. He's going to play like 20 to 30 minutes and shoot a bunch of threes. And this guy is going to play 20 to 30 minutes and get a bunch of post ups, rebounds, play defense. So I think he would be a perfect kind of final piece to this roster if they're able to get him.
Yeah, I mean he can do it all. He can score, rebound, and when you look at, like I just kind of said, but it's worth reiterating again, when you look at the shooting, the ball handling ability of Lawrence and Blue, the post scoring ability of a guy like Eurysephagus and Rink Mast, I mean this team is extremely balanced. So adding Osar would just continue that balance even more, in my opinion.
It is balanced. I like how it's shaping up, and yeah, I mean, people are like, "Oh, we haven't replaced like Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary." Well, like, no, you're not gonna. That's not how it works. Like, and like the best player on this team is going to be, it needs to be Rink Mast. I mean, he was an All Big Ten selection, so that's a pretty good, starting point. And I think Kendall Blue has a lot of things that Bryce Williams does, and I think he can even have. I think he has a higher upside. He has a higher ceiling, not a higher ceiling than Bryce Williams, but a higher ceiling than he showed. And I think Fred Hoiberg has shown that he's really good at getting that out of players. So like you see, like Bryce was good at Charlotte, but when he got to Nebraska, like he became a different player. And you can't tell me that
The
Fred.
same way, I thought too. Like he did a
Yeah.
much better job, I think, of moving without the basketball at Nebraska. Like I felt like Fred was able to get a lot out of him.
Yeah, like Fred's he's a damn good coach. He's coached, Iowa State to the NCAA tournament. He's been in the NBA. He's been an NBA GM. Like he knows the game. And so I feel like, yeah, a lot of these guys that are coming here, even if they're not the highest ranked guy in the transfer portal, like I still feel like they're going to improve their game. And I think Nebraska's going to be a pretty good team next year. Obviously, I still think they're going to be like on the bubble. They're going to be, it's going to be similar. I think almost every year for Nebraska is going to be similar. Like it's going to be fighting to make the NCAA tournament, yada yada yada. But that's a hell of a lot better place to be than bumbling at the bottom of the Big Ten conference, which I know that's kind of where they ended up this year. But they still were, just a few wins away from making it to the tournament. So I think that's where they're going to be, and for the most part, I'm fine with that. I do want them to win games and stuff, but I would much rather have a reason to watch basketball than like a few years ago. Like there wasn't even reason to watch the team in like February because they were like had like 8 wins.
They were like 9-21 or something, and like
yeah. Like at least this team is playing like in postseason tournaments. You know what I mean? So, and I feel like they'll. And I know the Crown, blah, 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 but it's still playing in the Crown is still better than sitting at home and not having a team that's like good enough to even get there, So
I agree. And hopefully next year won't be the Crown, but be the NCAA tournament. But we'll see. One thing at a time.
Yeah, I think they have a good chance. I like how they're building this roster, but yeah, it's hard to.
Built last year though too. So there you go.
Yeah, I did too, but I mean, it's always like I feel like you're always going to have that reaction. You always want to have that positive. You'd like that optimistic mindset when you're building a roster, like what it could be, and you're trying to think of, it's kind of always the glass half full mindset. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to guard against that a little bit with some of these additions, but and there is some of these guys are going to have to prove that they can play up in another league, and that always is a concern. But that's why, like with Ezra Asauye, like he's already played in the Big 12, and that's a really quality conference. And the whatever they call it, the American, he was all American, or no, he was on the all. He was an all freshman in the American Conference. God, why I hate that conference name. It's just it gets confusing.
All American. What was it before? Was it? Oh, the Big East.
Yeah, it was the Big East. Yeah, then they
that's what it was.
And they changed.
I miss Big East basketball. Not to go off on like a random tangent, but Big East basketball is the best. I love the old time, say like UConn, Syracuse. Even BC back when they were in the Big East before they joined the ACC. Like I miss good Big East basketball.
Yeah, now it's like half the Big East plus like Creighton and some other weird schools. It just isn't the same. And I'm not trying to diss on Creighton, but
no, it's not the same.
But you know what? I still miss the Big Eight. So I miss when Nebraska used to play Kansas, and that was always a fun game. And we usually got killed, but every once in a while we beat Kansas, and that just like that was always. I remember that was always like the one time a year Nebraska was on like national TV when they would like play Kansas, and so I feel
Part of
like,
me wishes Nebraska was still in the Big 12 because he would have ran the table.
yeah, we probably would have been in the playoff last year if they
Yeah.
had been in the Big 12. Like, I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona State was good. I don't know. Maybe we couldn't have beat Arizona State, but probably would at least like made the like championship game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And probably would have got like a 17-point lead and then found a way to lose it. Like,
Yeah, bro. Yeah,
like
probably.
like when we played Oklahoma in the Big 12, like one of the last, it might have been the last Big 12 championship game, and we had a chance. I feel like we had a chance to go up like 14 and like threw an interception in the end zone or something. I don't know, but we need to end this drought of conference championships. So
maybe this will be the year.
maybe, I don't know. That's the thing about it. It's like winning a conference championship now is it's as hard as winning the national championship. I mean, let's just be honest about it, because last year's national champion didn't even win the Big Ten. So
I was gonna say it's meaningless now. I mean, kind of,
yeah.
but so maybe.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's meaningless, but I
don't
would
know.
say it's not. It is more meaningless, like in the sense that you don't have to win the Big Ten to win the national championship anymore. So like, yeah, you're right. In the like,
Yeah,
you don't even need to play in it. I mean, it's like, but I think it does still mean something for, like, it would mean something for Nebraska if they won it. You know,
and
like,
also when you have 72 teams in the Big Ten, it's a lot harder now. So
yeah, for sure. You're like, yeah, you talk about it's I just think you have to look at it almost as a whole separate, the way I look at basketball, it's like, you truly successful is you have three chances outside of the, the crown and stuff like that to hang a banner, right? And that's to, win the regular season Big Ten, win the Big Ten tournament, win the national championship. And in football, you have two opportunities, and that's winning the national title and winning your conference champ. I mean, because I don't think we're hanging banners for the Pinstripe Bowl. So, like, you know what I mean?
I mean, we might.
Maybe that. No, we can't do that. I will get I still want a T-shirt though. So yeah, it's still one of those trophies that you can win, and I sure as hell would love to see Nebraska win it. I would love to see him make it there, and we'll see if that ever happens. I think we're closer than some of us want to admit, though. But we can still be a mile away. Close can still be a mile away. So that's my final thought for the day.
Yeah, same here. Those are some good metaphor for life.
So, all right, guys, we'll wrap it up there. We'll be back with another episode midweek, and then we'll do our Saturday morning chats, this Saturday leading into the spring game. So make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.